Welcome back to Revelatorium, the podcast that comes around once a month, just about as often as you may or may not have the urge to do something drastic about your appearance, because I am certainly feeling that. I have changed my hair so much over the last year. Like, I got it cut super short when it was blonde. It was like almost to my ear, little Meg Ryan moment. Then I dyed it purple kind of accidentally, and then I dyed it red on purpose. Then I let the red fade out, and I got like a shag cut. Then I got like curly bangs, and now I'm like, ugh, I want to dye it blonde again. Or I need to really commit to this look, because TikTok has been delivering the news that I look like either an Ella Emhoff dupe or Frodo Baggins' hot sister, which I appreciate the addition of the hot sister part. Some people just comment Frodo. Like, that is like, I've gotten like hundreds of those comments, and I'm not even looking at my comments actively. So that is just like, it is like eking through the net, the filter that I go through. And I'm just so aware. And I'm like, I don't think I can be like inhabiting this appearance anymore if I'm going to keep getting clocked as Frodo. Like, I just really am getting mixed signals on this haircut for me. It's so hard to know what is the most flattering like haircut for you. And that is, I feel like I've talked about this before, but that is like the number one reason why I would want to be a celebrity for like a day, just so I could get like the full celebrity glam and have them look at my face and my bone structure and like articulately tell me like, this is how you should do your eyeliner. These are the earrings you should wear. This is the color jewelry that looks best on you. This is the haircut that's going to be most flattering to you. Like, I just want to know that information, but maybe I don't. Because then maybe it would trap me from wanting to like free myself and express myself in all these different ways. Because it's kind of fun. Like, I can't tell. You can't really see my full hair right now, but like, I can't tell if this is my best look. Some people on TikTok are like, show us the 360. We need the hair tutorial. Love your hair. Like, obsessed with your hair. And then a lot of people are just like, yeah, it is giving Frodo, Ella Emhoff, which I don't consider to be super flattering. Like, everyone's just like, you look just like Elijah Wood. Not a bad looking guy by any means, but I'm just hearing these equalized calls for keeping it or getting rid of it. Who knows? And that leads right into whether or not I should trust my impulses, which is one of the main revelations of today's video, is that I realized I have a murky relationship with my intuition and with my impulses. And I'll tell you how I came to this conclusion after, because I remember maybe 2 months ago, most of my revelations were born out of a little stony baloney night. And then last month, the revelations were born out of a dopamine detox. This month, the source of these revelations is a revelation in itself. But I like deny my impulses a lot. And I did include this as a question to listeners. So if you ever want to be featured in the end of my episodes on my Instagram and on my YouTube community tab, usually 48 hours before I record, so the end of the month, I'll share the link and you can fill them out. But I asked a lot of people about their relationship with their impulses, and I'm really excited to read those at the end. But I just do not even know what my intuition is saying most of the time. I've been so attached to other people's validation and getting the approval of authority figures that oftentimes I don't even know what I want. And I've been trying to step more into that with like little stupid little things. Like, what do I want to eat? No, well, that's not stupid at all. Like, what do I want to eat right now? Or what outfit do I want to wear? Like, I've tried to just like in the morning, if I'm feeling like wearing this vest, I'm just going to put an outfit around this vest. Like, I'm not going to overthink it. Even if the weather isn't quite right, I'm just going to go with it and stop second guessing myself and overthinking so much, because I just get stuck in these ruminating patterns. And I like when I trust my impulses, and I like when I trust my intuition, and it leads to fun, adventurous little things. Like, I feel like I'm usually rewarded when I trust my impulses, but of course there's times when you're not. Like, for example, last night, like my friend Ellie was visiting. We went to this cafe to order dessert, and he gave us each like little candies when we were signing the receipt. and we ate the candy, and then I had the little wrapper, and there was a trash can behind the counter, like behind the bar. And I really had the impulse to want to shoot the little candy wrapper. I had the very human urge to want to dunk on him. And I wanted to shoot it into the trash so freaking bad. And my friend kind of like laughed at that and was like, oh no, we probably shouldn't, like would be disrespectful. But I'm like, let me just ask. So when the waiter came back, like people in Seattle are so chill. Like I love making conversation with people here because they're always so relaxed and laid back. And I was like, hey, like I'm really having the impulse to like try to shoot this into the trash can. Would you care? And he was like, oh my God, go for it. And so I did shoot, and it missed, but it bounced off and landed in a different trash can. And then I used her wrapper and did it again, and I missed again. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'll need to practice my shot. He's like, yeah, go home, do some free throws, come back. And it was this cute little moment, like this cute little vibe that we had, and frees you from the shackles of normal human interaction where you just follow the script of like, thank you, have a nice day, take care, bye. Like those types of things, when you don't, you're not even tapped into your impulse because you're so just moored to the like usual rhythm that you're just like stuck in. That's no fun. It's like fun when you do little kooky things and lean into just the weird little impulses you have. Those aren't so hard for me to lean into. Like the other night we were out, and I happened to be hanging around a group of 22, 23-year-olds, which is probably the age where it's like hardest to trust your impulses. Like I feel like I denied my impulses the most at that age because I was just so lost. I had no idea. I just wanted to fit in and be accepted. And I just like, so instead of going with my gut, I just went with whatever everybody else wanted. And I had this like really healing conversation with this like 22-year-old kid where I was like, he was like lying about meeting his friend on Bumble BFF. He like pretended they met in college, but really they had met on Bumble BFF. And I was like, I wanted to ask him why he lied about that earlier in the night. And so I just did. I was like, hey, why did you feel the need to, make up a little fib about where you met him? And he was like, oh, well, I don't know, because I wasn't really trying to. It just kind of like slipped on the app and I ended up talking to him. And I was like, okay. And then I also had the impulse to call bullshit on that because I was like, what do you mean your finger like slipped on the app and you accidentally made a friend? Like, what does that even mean? So I was like, oh, well, what do you mean? Like, you just slipped on the app? Like, are you kidding me? Is it that easy? And so he pulled up in the app and we were talking. We had this really nice healing transformative. I'd like to think I healed him like maybe even 1%. I think the world maybe would be a lot better place if 22-year-old boys had a mentoring relationship with like a 27-year-old woman. I think that would like in a very platonic way, like just truly like, let's share some perspective here. Let's bridge some divides. But I followed my impulses there, and we ended up having a great like a very authentic, real ass, genuine conversation because of it, where we weren't following the script of like earlier in the night, he would just ask me like, oh, what do you do? It was like very just typical bar conversation. And I was like, what? Like I wasn't drinking, but he was very inebriated. And I was like, what is the point of losing your inhibition if not to trust your impulses? Like that's another huge thing, is I feel like that is why people turn to substances a lot, is to lower their inhibition so they can actually have a like aligned relationship with their intuition and their impulses. Like thinking about in college how many people would use the excuse of like a drunk text because you're fearful of the rejection. Like if you have the impulse to text someone at 10 a.m., there's like no excuse. Like that's just earnestly you wanted to text them, so you reached out to them. But if you text someone at 1 a.m., you can have the byline of like, well, it was just a drunk text, I didn't really mean it. So people use that as a way to like bolster their impulses. And I typically do not. I want to get to, I like going into situations very soberly, like not even just substance wise, but like the meaning of sober as in like very awarely and like be present and mindful and like be fully there, that type of sober. I feel like I've learned recently that I use words in like really different ways. Like when I say something sexy, I don't mean I want to like have intercourse with it. When I'm like, oh my God, that like, the way you set up your living room is so sexy. It's not like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm being really misread a lot lately. But no, I typically try to enter situations pretty soberly and just express myself earnestly. But the hardest time to trust my impulses is when a situation is really high stakes, that I've put a lot of pressure on myself for it to go the right way. Like it's meaningful to me. It's really important to me. Like obviously, employment tends to be important in this country. Like if I go out for a job interview that I really, really want, I'm going to take it really, really seriously. And I'm going to do as much preparation and rehearsal as possible to try to I have this belief that I can if I maneuver the situation perfectly correct and I game theory my way through it, that I can guarantee a certain outcome, which is fully just non-operative thinking. That's not helpful thinking. That's not how the world works. You cannot just game the system and act so perfectly that everything just unfolds for you. And so oftentimes in a job interview, I will do so much preparation and sometimes I'll even prepare the little opening sort of small talk. You'll research a few things about the interviewer, so you have some things to go off of instead of just showing up to the situation with an open mind and just playing into what's going on. So I'm getting to a point where I'm okay, how do I unlock my relationship to my intuition and trust my impulses with the more high stakes stuff? So I've started with the low grade, and it's fine. But what really needs to happen is, because I don't spend that much time overthinking about the low grade stuff. It's the high grade stuff that I am maladaptively overthinking about, and then I don't do what I usually do. I'm very good at expressing myself, but then somehow I freeze up when it's a situation that actually really matters to me. So I need to release. And one way that I have started to release that is by dipping my toes into the waters of improv. This was the source of several of my revelations today. And I didn't even want to say up front that this revelation was born out of improv for fear that you would misjudge me and discount the revelations for just the stigma of improv that I do feel like improv has. And I don't want to introduce a stigma if you didn't believe that there was a stigma. I'm not trying to add to the stigma. I'm trying to erase the stigma. But I was oh, confirmation bias. If I start this episode up top, listen to all the things I learned at improv class, click. I'm going to listen to Muna now. I'm not going to listen to Revelatorium. It's it's time to see what new albums are out, because I'm not listening to that. So stay with me, guys. Trust and believe that I am going to take you through the path. And it's a little bit meta because the next revelation is that having revelations via improv is corny. I fear that the reputation of that colors what's coming out of it. And I went into basically I was invited to this improv night by a friend I recently made, and I showed up. It's 2 hours, and I knew that there was a little bit of a resentment in me. I've harbored some temperaments towards theater kids in my life. In high school, I did not really vibe with theater kids very well. In college, I did. But I tend to have a little bit of resistance to environments where everyone's trying to ham it up, because I just like a lot of my humor and my comedy is just born out of conversations with people. I'm not when I show up in a room, I'm not necessarily trying to be the most dazzling star of the show. I'm not trying to get all the attention. And I realize this is ironic because what is a podcast if not a shout into the void for attention? Anything I post online is obviously asking for attention. And that's also why I believe it's really important to give feedback to people and comment on stuff and like stuff and give your feedback, because it's social media. People do it for attention. They want to interact. And if we stop actually using social media to interact and we just all are looking through windows at people's lives but not actually tapping into them, it's a waste. Okay. But I was a little bit apprehensive because I've policed theater kids in the past and I don't like that. I feel like I police their behavior where it like irks me or like gives me the ick when I can feel that people in the room are trying to like ham it up and trying to be the center of attention. Cause I'm just like, what if you were just naturally already interesting? You didn't have to try, I'm like, I don't think you have to try so hard. I think you guys probably are just interesting. You don't have to like make up all the most cleverest lines in the world. So, I entered the situation and I actually realized that in that environment around theater kids, I become shy. Like I become, by the nature of the average of the room. Like usually when I step into a room, I feel like I'm able to be 100% myself. I felt like being 100% myself in an improv class was like everyone else was 300% themselves. So my 100% felt like a third. It felt like actually 33%. Like the scale of it felt really off where I was like, usually I feel like I'm a little bit of a class clown when I enter like a group situation. And in this case, I feel like I'm being really shy and like boring. And it felt weird. It was like a recalibration of like where I fit in the social scene because it was just a room full of very outgoing people. And I feel like usually I'm in rooms of a lot of like introverts and like shyer people. So I tend to I'm just a very loud person and I'm a taker. I have no problem expressing my opinions and like offering up like a fun idea to like talk about with the group. That's what I really like to do conversationally. So it was an odd moment there for a bit. And then I kind of loosened up and, I fell into it and I realized like I was not bad at it. I wasn't like, a lot of people are apprehensive about improv because they're worried about like making fools of themselves and having to like, perform. There was no apprehension about that because I'm a very playful person and I love to do bits with my friends and I'm always kind of just like yucking it up. Like I'm always coming up with little spoofs in my head and like I wasn't worried about that. I'm a very playful person. I love to like flirt. I love to just like have a little fun dynamic. So that wasn't the issue at all. Most of the time when I heard of people going into improv, it was like they are doing it to get better at public speaking. They're really scared about speaking in spaces. Like I just said, I have no problem. I was a tour guide in college. I'm used to just like shouting to a group of 60 people. Like I have no problem doing that. So I thought most people went into it to become better conversationalists. I feel confident in my conversational abilities. Like I really feel like I can hold a conversation with most people. That's why I worked in sales for 5 years. Like those skills of mine have always been like acknowledged. And so I was like, why don't I literally sell that? Why don't I sell my conversational skills for 6 figures to the tech industry to peddle some software? What a horrible use of conversational skills. I would much rather use my conversational skills out and about in a non-professional corporate setting. So I thought most people went into it to just like become better speakers and like performers and like loosen up. What I didn't think about was improv as a way to kind of like repair or mend your relationship to your impulses, because of course improv is about trusting your impulses, but somehow having never done an improv class, and I have not done theater since middle school. Like I did musical theater summer camps in middle school, but I hadn't done theater since then. And I had thought that theater, improv was about coming up with like the most funny thing you could at any second, right? Like I didn't think it was about trusting your impulse. I thought it was about thinking on your feet comedically and like coming up with the most, clever thing to say. But it was reiterated time and time again that workshop was like, because it was just like a one-time drop-in improv session. That workshop was really about just embracing the first thought that comes to your head. And that's also work that I'd been doing with The Artist's Way, which finds its way into every single episode of this podcast. And I literally trust and promise you that I am not trying to. That is just like how foundational of a text in my life it is. But every week in that book, they have you fill out little tasks that ask you questions about like, what are the 8, jobs you would have wanted to do when you were like a little kid? Like, what did you dream of doing when you grow up? Or like, what were like your 5 favorite foods? Or like, what are like 6 things you would do right now if you didn't stop yourself. Like just little prompts like that for you to journal about. And Julia Cameron, the author's whole insistence in these things is like literally the first thing that comes up in your head, say it. Like if you have the impulse that a hobby you would do if you weren't so scared is to go clowning, write it down. Like rollerblading, write it down. To garden, write it down. Like whatever it is, even if it makes no sense to you, you've never thought about it before, you've never consciously recognized that impulse, like just record the impulse. Because so often we just suppress those, and that's how we get so blocked and so like jaded and like boxed in this life, is that we don't trust our little spontaneous impulses to do things that don't necessarily fit with like our image that we have of ourselves. So she really helped me repair my like writing impulses. Like I feel like writing now I'm much better, and because I do 3 pages stream of consciousness every morning, I'm so prone now to just exactly what comes to my head, write it, don't censor myself. But speech wise, like in an improv room, I was recognizing how much I wanted to like come up with something funny and like be the biggest laugh in the room. But I had to deny in a way, I had to deny that impulse to embrace the other ones. I had to deny that belief that my impulses are not good enough and actually just trust them. And it was so wonderful for that reason alone. And there was a break in the improv session. We went to a different room, and there were a bunch of these like tables set up that looked like the tables that they would have had at like a college networking session. And so me and this guy that I'd literally never met before, like I walked in and I just had the impulse to say, it looks like we're in a college networking room. And then he was like, yeah. And then we just leaned into that bit, and we had this little bit where like we were pretending to do a job interview, and it was so fun. Like it just sounds so silly, but like it was just so fun, because I was like, wow, we're really just leaning into the impulse of like, what if we did a little bit about this looking like a networking room. And that impulse to do that with him has born a nice little friendship. So boom, because the reason I wanted to do improv was really because I want to make more comedy friends. Like I want more friends in comedy, and improv doesn't necessarily is like 1-for-1 comedy. Like I guess maybe it's more theater. I don't really know, but I want to get into like one of the impulses I had when I was doing those prompts in the artist way is like, I want to do stand up and I want to like try comedy, because I listen to so much observational comedy and I feel like I have a real taste for it. And I'm like, if I have a taste for it, why don't I try it myself? And this goes back to being a shadow artist from the episode before. And I also wanted to try improv because my dear friend Michelle, who is my like friendship, like mirror or like soul tether, she is kind of my parallel. She's 3 years older than me, because she's my sister's age. She's actually my sister's friend that I have adopted as like a surrogate older sister as well. And I've discussed her here before because I've learned so much from her, because she approaches her life and her friendships in a very similar way that I do. Like I hold friendships so near and dear. Like it's my number one priority in my life to like support my relationships. And that's the most fulfilling thing for me. And she's totally of that same wavelength. And she's also just a very extroverted person. So she needs a lot of like social fulfillment that way. And she grew up in Australia. I met her when her family moved to the US. They moved back there, and then she moved to Berlin for a year. And that's how she met all of her friends in Berlin, was through an improv class. Like she was walking down the street one night and like looked into, I don't know if it was a bar or the improv joint itself, but she saw a bunch of people hanging out, and the vibe in there just looked so good. And she was like, that vibe is excellent. I'm bookmarking it and I'm going to come back to it. And it took her 6 months, right? She had the impulse to like want to like hang out with those people. It took her 6 months to actually sign up for the improv class. But once she did follow that impulse, that was the start of everything for her there. Like that's how she built her whole social community. And she ended up really liking improv. And then when she moved back to Australia and moved to a new city in Australia, that's how she made a bunch of friends was taking an improv class. And she's also not somebody that was ever doing theater. Like she's not a theater kid. Like she just signed up for improv because it's just that thing you do when you're in your 20s and you're in a new city. Like it's so, in that way, it feels like, oh, it's just a catch-all. Like if you don't have a hobby, try improv. Like anyone can do it. So I trusted her so much because I was like, oh, she's found such a sense of community through it. And I just love, I think humor is one of the best like criteria for a friend. Like if you have the same sense of humor, to me, like the most profound friendships are the ones where we have such a narrow but deep overlap in our sense of humor where like I almost can't find it with another person. Like we are able to joke and laugh about things. We have references that we both know that I feel like I can't trust that like everyone has. And so it's really, really special when you can make friends with somebody that you have that like comedic timing with. And so I went into the class with those intentions of like wanting to make comedy friends, and did not expect, no, actually the first class, because she had told me like it took her like maybe 3 different classes to actually settle with like a group of improv friends. So I was not expecting just one drop-in workshop to make friends, but like literally multiple friendships. We'll see if I ever see these people again, but like multiple friendships have been like born out of that. And I'm like, how weird that this was such a prophecy where she told me this is how she made her friends. I followed that, and now I'm making friends this way too. Very odd, very odd. So yeah, it was very powerful to just lean into my impulses and not deny myself that. And it was really cute because I think I will go back because we had a nice moment. We did these like small group improv exercises actually about stuff we had journaled about. And I was reading what I had journaled about, and I was trying to pick which thing I would like share with the group. And I was like, okay, you guys, do you want a silly one or do you want like an earnest one? And the whole group turned to me and they were like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to share? And I was like dumbstruck because I was like, I feel like I'm in a dream sequence where like it's literally that moment where like your character, like the protagonist, is like faced with their ultimate crux of the like the thing that's been holding them back in their lives, which for me would be like struggling with validation. And this is like the crossroads that I get to. And suddenly all of the signs are pointing back at me. And I was like, oh my God. Like it was really very powerful. And I like, in saying this again, I feel like I fear that I'm going to face judgment for like having such a meaningful time at an improv class. Because I just think that in some way, somehow that's like humiliating. But I want to stop like policing corniness like that. And I did ask a question of you all when we get to the end of the episode about your relationship to corniness, because I don't want to believe that improv is corny. It's just something I've inherited and now I have to release it. And I don't care if people think it's dumb and stupid that I've learned these meaningful things from it, because I have. Okay, last revelation, and then we'll get into fact checking for the month, is that going back to the night I shared with a group of 22 and 23-year-olds, that was a very revelatory time. It's always very, very revelatory whenever I hang around a 22 or 23-year-old, I will say. It teaches me a lot. And just that I think that 5-year difference is really powerful. And even my relationship with Michelle, she's only 3 years older, but I do feel like an older sister mentor vibe from her. Even just 3 years down the road, her experience is like invaluable to me. So when I was hanging around them, it was a bunch of kids that had just moved to Seattle after college. It was like their first year out of school. And I was looking at them, grasping onto friendship and trying to like find their place in this new city. And I'm also I've been in Seattle for 2 years. I'm also trying to find my place here, but I found myself feeling grateful for moving here at 25 rather than 22. Like I knew I wanted to be in Seattle when I graduated college, because I visited here the first summer after I graduated college and I was like, oh, I love it here. I would like to try living here, but I didn't act on that impulse or trust that impulse for 4 more years. I'm kind of glad that I waited on that impulse, because like it's sort of nice that I was able to start fresh at 25 here and be in a spot where I'm so much more self-assured and I know what I want more. Like I have more of a sense of like the qualities I'm looking for in friendships, like how many the difference between quality and quantity in friendships. I just I was just so lost from like 22 to 24. And it's kind of nice that I can just like close that chapter in San Francisco, leave it there, and start fresh in Seattle, where like I have a fresh social slate. Like I don't have anybody that I befriended from being like a fake version of myself, basically, like just trying to be the most likable person. Like all of my friends here, like very much are people that I admire and I like, and maybe that means I have a smaller group, but like I'm much more willing to take the time to invest in like a few people and build those than just spray and pray. Like that's what I was doing in San Francisco. It's just like spray and pray technique that my friendships would form. Okay, let's hear from Lena Daniels, my lovely fact checker, who's going to comment on what happened last episode.
Hey y'all, it's Lena Daniel with another fact check of an episode of Revelatorium. In the beginning of the episode, Catherine mentioned Shanghai and whether or not it was the largest city in China, and it is, with more than 26 million people. Later on, she mentioned the book Saving Time by Jenny Odell and introducing the concept of Kairos time, differentiating it from Chronos. Chronos is the capitalist time that we usually live by, the employee time clock, the relentless pace of work. You have the same 24 hours in a day as Beyonce memes, urging productivity, whereas Kairos means something more like crisis, and it's marked by a feeling of uncertainty or a feeling that time itself is passing in a different way, but also a time that's more hopeful. It's the time in which change or transformation becomes possible, and it's the time in which we become the creators of our own world.
Hearing that definition of Kairos, I'm like, I've been in Kairos for a whole ass year. Like basically ever since I quit my job, because I no longer am holding on to a capitalist definition of Chronos time. Like I've been living in Kairos for a year. And in a way it's kind of destabilizing because I feel like not everyone lives like this or can live like this, but it's also been very freeing.
Later in the episode, she mentions one of the listeners is from Nassau, which indeed is the capital of the Bahamas. And one other location that Catherine mentioned was Calgary, and questioning whether or not it was a mountain city. I did some research, and it does seem to be a mountain city. There are 6 named mountains in the area, and a lot of people do hiking and very granola activities. So I think it's safe to say that Calgary is granola. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, my dear. Very helpful to know when I've been wrong. What a healthy exercise is admitting I was wrong and admitting that a lot of the time I'm right. Okay, so leaving in May. We're in June now, okay? What are we leaving in May? What's not crossing the threshold into this new month if we're going to go with Chronos time and the Gregorian calendar and accept that we're in a new month? If you want to extend May, go for it. Go for it. What am I leaving? 2 a.m. bedtimes. I'm done with it. I'm done with it. Like, I want to be in bed before midnight. It's so hard in the summer when the sun goes down here at like 9, doesn't even get dark here till like 10. I'm eating dinner at 9:30, and then I'm wanting to watch a TV show at 11. Like everything just shifts back, but then the sun rises at like 5 a.m. So if you go to bed at 2 a.m., you're only getting 3 hours of like night rest. So, and you actually want to go to bed basically when the sun goes down at like 10, and then you want to wake up at like 5, and that's still only 7 hours. That's not like, there's just not enough darkness. And I hate to say that because usually in Seattle and in northern cities, people are complaining that there's not enough light, but I'm like, grass is always greener. In the summer, like everyone wants to say summer is the best season, but in this one way, I remember last summer, my sleep schedule, garbaggio. My sleep schedule was so chickpea. And that's the other cool thing though about living in a seasonal place is that now we're dipping into summer here, and my mind is being flooded with all my memories of the past summer. I think I've spoken on this before too, but like growing up in California, my memories, I have no idea what month they happened in. Unless it's like, oh, I was graduating that month or school started that month. I have no idea what month any of my memories happened in because the weather is so consistent. Versus here, I'm like, oh my God, I remember seeing that view through the trees of the water at like 9:30 when the sun is setting. Like I remember being in Olympic National Park and seeing that. Like I remember going up to Chuckanut, and I remember going, it's just so fun because it almost feels like The You know what's good technology is the Apple prompted photo albums. And I know some people don't like them because they'll show photos of like your ex, but you can choose not to do that. Okay. Like you can go to your people and in your camera roll and click on your ex and like remove them. So you don't have to have Apple show you photos of your ex. But I like when it just makes little like albums. I take so many photos. The albums are always so full of like all these memories that I've had. And it's nice to have those be refreshed and like be prompted with it. I used to use this app called Time Hop to give me a sense of that. It would like tell me on this day, the last 10 years, like what did you tweet? What did you snap? What did you post on Instagram? Like what photos did you take? And I love having all that information because I'm a very sentimental, nostalgic person. And so it's fun to be in summer again because I'm reminded, oh yeah, we are in summer, because I remember last summer struggling deeply with trying to go to sleep when there's not enough darkness. I'm also leaving staining and finishing woodworking projects. I am literally never doing that again. I made a table in my woodworking class and I'm very proud of the result. And I knew I wanted to stain it because I want it to be darker. It's behind my couch, so you can't see it. I knew I wanted to be darker, and the staining process took like 4 days. None of it looked quite right. I felt like I was messing up constantly, and I just realized I don't like handiwork projects. I don't like it. And I end up inviting a friend over because I'm like, I can't do these alone. Like, I'm so socially motivated. I hate this already. I at least need someone here to inspire me to actually get the work done. And similarly, I'm leaving putting on bike fenders. I had a 3-day saga trying to put on one fender for my bike, which is basically, I realize a lot of people don't know what a bike fender is. It's this metal thing that goes over your tire so that when you are biking, the like water or the mud does not splash on you. Very essential in Seattle when you want to be biking all 4 seasons. And it took me 90 minutes of painstaking work with my dad just to put on the easier fender on the front tire. So safe to say, I may or may not be investing in a TaskRabbit to get that done. We're leaving those, and I can feel the resentment bubbling up in me about all 3 of those things. Bye-bye. Leaving you in May, never to be seen again. Taking, it's not that deep, it's not that serious. As in, I mean, like I'm taking that phrase, like I'm taking the mantra, it's not that deep, it's not that serious, which kind of alludes to the overthinking thing. Like, I need to just accept with some things, it's really not, like with my table, it's not that deep. Like, it doesn't need to be perfect. I'm not selling this. It's not going in, I don't know why I wanted to say Shailene Woodley's house. Has she done an Architectural Digest tour? I don't know. I feel like she would have a good one, though. Shailene Woodley, Paige Wassel collab. When? So I'm taking that. I'm taking my love for where I live, summer vibes, and being in water. I'm taking living, laughing, and loving. Summer just came earlier this year than it did last year. And I'm recognizing that like I'm in the perfect place for me. This is exactly where I love to be. I love to be in the lake. I love to be in the beach. I love to be on the park. I love to be in my hammock. I love to be hiking. I love to be walking. I love to be biking. I love to be all over. Like, it is just so good here. The summer comes around and everything you did before that to get through the winter is worth it. And also I'm into taking button-down dresses and wearing them like shirts. Like, one of my favorite formulas for an outfit is like little shirt or like little tank top, jeans or shorts or something, and then just a short sleeve button down, but like open. That's like one of my favorite formulas. It's just like such an easy outfit, like a little overshirt. Little overshirt just like seals the outfit together. It looks so much more intentional and you just barely even did anything. So then I was like, wait, I've been thrifting so many dresses that are button down dresses, like all the way, like they button in the front. Just open up all the buttons and then you can have like an extra long shirt and it looks so cool. And I got so many compliments on it. I'm like, this is a really fun, more versatile way to wear this dress. And also if it's cold and you need more layers, you can wear like nice pair of pants and like a nice top and then put the dress over it. So taking that, there's a word for it. And Lena, if you can find the word for what it is to wear a dress open like that, let me know, because the lady at the vintage shop recommended I do that. And I cannot remember the word she had for it. Which is killing me. Okay. Prompts for you all to respond to this month in your head, because podcasts don't have a great commenting forum. But if you're watching on YouTube, do leave your responses to these prompts. if you caught these when I posted them on Instagram or my YouTube tab, you can write them into me and then I will read them, and it's really fun. And I'm tempted to like start publishing these. I'm tempted. I just had this impulse. I'm tempted to make these into zines. I really want to start a zine. And I had a very specific strategic like theme that I was going to do for the zine. It was just going to be a one-off zine. But now I'm like, it would be really cool to turn these into monthly zines if I can figure out how to like design and publish those. So this is all to say, if you have experience creating zines, you like doing that, you would want to collab on a zine for the Revelatorium podcast, I think that could be a really fun medium. Like, do you know any podcasts that have accompanying zines? Because this is a very like collective effort. When I get dozens and dozens of write-ins, and it's like I feel like I'm hoarding wealth by just keeping these on my laptop and not sharing these, because you guys are so thoughtful, and it's really wonderful to see with these few themes that I introduce, like how we all revolve and center around them, and how we relate to them. So yeah, if you like zines and you like making zines, you have experience, send an email to revelatoriumpod@gmail.com. And if you don't know how to spell Revelatorium, look at whatever app you're listening to this on, and it will be spelled there. The title of it might be in the app you're listening to this on. All right, let's start with what are you leaving in May, because there were definitely some consistencies brewing. Like, I think some of you are going to feel validated hearing this, and less alone, because a lot of you are experiencing similar things. Frankie in Boulder is leaving behind her terrible job in tech that I'd been wanting to leave anyway, but to my relief was laid off from. And I have another friend that was laid off from her tech job, and it also was a relief. Like, she feels like she was freed. Like, it was actually a really good thing. And it's very refreshing to hear people speak to getting laid off as relief. Obviously, if you have the financial support, it's not scary, but I'm very happy for you, Frankie. And to be laid off right before the summer, like, you're going to have a nice little, hedonistic moment. All right. Anonymous, who's 34 in LA, said that she is leaving my need to overthink how I am in social situations, pre-mental prep to communicate with others, and drinking alcohol. And this is exactly what I was talking about. Like, I am a very neurotic person. Like, if I can make a game plan for a situation, I will. Like, and it's doing so much more work than just showing up in person and processing the context and the vibe and communicating in real time. So I'm with you. I'm with you. Gabrielle, who's 23 in California, said she's leaving stress over whether or not my blooming relationship thing will last through the summer. Negative limerence. Limerence is this concept I introduced on my Patreon live stream, if you want to go over there. Actually, a lot of people wrote in about limerence, which is cool. I'm like, let's get that concept out there. The uncertainty. Summer is like such a crazy time. Like, you really just, there's no way of knowing, but I hope for your sake that it does bloom, because that would be very fun. Like a little summer fling, I haven't had like a summer, I've had like spring flings, and I had like a 3 or 4 week summer fling. And it was fun. And it was fun because there's so much light out. You're just already so more uplifted. I'm like willing to see people in a better light in the summer, literally because the light is better. Okay. Grace in Brooklyn, who's 23, said that they're leaving, defining myself by my romantic relationships. Relationships end, but I am forever with me. Also leaving behind the anxiety around fleeting moments. Being anxious that something is eventually going to end stops you from enjoying it while it's happening. And that's very profound. I wanted to read this specifically because of Grace's line that relationships end, but I am forever with me. Because when I hear that, I'm like, oh yay, I get to be forever with me. And that's a nice moment and reflection of how far I've gotten with my self-compassion work, because it's nice. Like, I like spending time with myself. Although I will say I am somebody who I feel more myself around other people than when I'm alone. Like, in a way, I feel like other people are able to pull me more out of me than I can do for myself. And that's why I'm an extrovert, because I'm like, I truly am, I feel more alive and whole and like myself when I'm around other people. But that doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. That could be a friendship. Wishing you well, Grace, because there was a lot of breakups happening in May. There's like a lot of breakups happening every month, it seems. Imagine that, relationships ending. But I wanted to read this other listener who wrote in, Nat in Seattle. What are you leaving in May? A shitty ex-boyfriend. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Which I liked because it came in 3 responses after. Emma in Chicago, who when I asked what she's taking into June from May, she said, my hot GF. So I just love the duality of man. Like, truly, what are we doing? Leaving shitty ex-boyfriends and taking hot girlfriends. Sounds great to me. I wish that were this. Imagine if that were the same person, leaving my shitty ex-boyfriend, taking my hot girlfriend. That would be iconic. Okay, wait, there actually was just one more I wanted to read about leaving. Anonymous in New York, he's 27, said he's leaving behind my negative social media consumption spiral. I work in tech and we have this app called Team Blind where people can anonymously post about things related to the workplace or miscellaneous topics. The anonymity brings out some of the worst in people. And I've found that when I see lots of negative comments and threads, I tend to look for more negative things in my own life. I'm getting to that phase in my life where I really value my own inner peace, and taking a step back from negative social media consumption should hopefully help me view things in life from a more nuanced and organic perspective. And let me just say, I hear and understand you, because from time to time, I have stumbled across the dreaded snark pages on Reddit. And I don't know who creates these. I don't know the origin stories of these. Obviously, guru gossip and like gossip threads have been online forever. But these in particular are like very insidious to me, because it's just like a group of people who are like hate following someone in mass, and they've formed a community around that hatred. There is like a little sometimes positivity, which I'm like, how can you hold someone in such a negative regard, but then you still are able to actually see good things in them? Like, that's one positive thing from these pages, is sometimes they don't just dogpile. Sometimes people actually do come out and support. But most of the time, it's like viewing this person and their actions in bad faith and like cringe copying the hell out of them. And I do think that my cringe radar like flares up when I consume those type of pages, because it's recontextualizing and because I don't have many people in my real life that are like policing cringe. Like, that doesn't really happen in person. Like, if you say something in person, no one's going to go corny, you know, like, versus if you post something on your Instagram story, the snark page could take a screenshot, post it, and then 24 people could upvote it and be like, this is corny. And I'm just like, is this progressing society forward? What are we getting out of this? It just really rots me to my core. Like, I hate that these exist, because to me, I'm like, it's totally fine if you want to express your feelings and your snark. Just keep it to the group chat. Like, don't put it in a place where the person you're snarking on can see it. Like, sometimes I think that these people are like pretending that they're like revolutionaries, and then they're going to affect change, and that this is somehow activism to like, you know, comment on how weird someone's face looks, or how bad her style is, or how like obnoxious her friends are. Like, I'm just like, do you think this person's going to change things about their life? And I would hate if the person actually did change things about their life because of the snark. You know, that's like a horrible, like, that's like acting out of fear and like criticism rather than like faith and love. Faith and love, baby. An ethic of love, as Bell Hooks would say. So I totally understand wanting to take a step back from those things. Like, I regret every single time I read any of the snark page, because its effects on me linger for many, many days after that, where I kind of inhabit the headspace of the people who are posting on there. And it's a very icky feeling. Okay. Oh, wait, actually, no, we do have one more leaving in May. This was from Flynn in St. Augustine, Florida. She's 20, and she said, my dad's death anniversary was May 22nd, and I always dread the reminder that I've spent another year without him, even though this year it wasn't the worst it's ever been. I'm glad it's over and I got through it. And I wanted to include this because I feel for you so heavily. I'm really glad I'm really glad that we're able to express the joys and sorrows of our lives on this Google sheet, as silly as that sounds. And that's why I want to turn it into a zine and make it into something more artistic, because I'm like, you guys are pouring so much of yourself into this and it's just staying in my fucking Excel. That's not right. It can't stay on my Google Sheets, because I'm like, I also have a painful anniversary in May, and I rarely think of it as, oh yeah, no, actually this year it did hit me that it's like, oh, another year without her. Like, it's been 6 years without her. Like, I can't believe it's been another year. Anniversaries really do serve that purpose. But I feel for you. That is a really tender time. So yeah, May, as you can tell by what people are leaving, such a huge range. What are you taking? Elizabeth in New York City, who's 25, said, photosynthesizing in the sun as much as possible. I feel happiest when I feel sun on my face, with SPF and sun protection obvi, and look forward to continuing the spring and starting the summer outside as much as possible. Yes. I visited my friends in Denver, and I spent one afternoon on this rooftop just baking like a lizard. Like, that's my favorite thing to do, is just bake like a lizard. It's such a treat to be a little animal and to just get pleasure out of the sun. Like, that is so free. Like, truly free, economically, monetarily free. Like, the sun is free. Think about that. Okay. Taylor in Pittsburgh, who's 25, said they're leaving the melancholy of leaving a place. No, sorry, they're taking into June the melancholy of leaving a place that is familiar and comforting, while knowing that place isn't somewhere I thrive, and sitting with the nuance of that feeling. Ugh. That is truly dissonance. Like, there's a lot in there, because it's like, oh my God, how can you feel so at home somewhere but also know it's not right for you? Eric, who's 32 in Turkey, said that she's taking a friend from high school who contacted her out of nowhere. I will definitely follow up on the communication and arrange a meeting. I love that. I love little reunions from your past. I think those are always worth exploring. And Anonymous from Anonymous Location, who's 25, said that she is taking freckles. I hope. I am a freckles supremacist. They're the cutest thing, and I feel so cute when my pale skin gets a hint of color. I have to agree. As a freckled person, like, I have freckles on my arms like all year round, but the ones on my face do fade a lot in the winter. And sometimes every single year I'm like, oh, maybe this will be the last year that I have freckles on my face, because they say that freckles don't like mature into your adulthood. Like, usually they say that like stays in your youth. Like, my dad, he was a very freckly kid, and he no longer gets freckles on his face. So I wonder at what point like I'll just stop getting freckles on my face. So every year, it is the spring and the summer are kind of an anniversary checkpoint of like, oh, am I going to get freckles this year? And then it's kind of nice when they appear, because I'm like, oh, I'm still, that is still a part of my identity. They're just cute and fun. And I agree, just adds a little bit of color. Somebody just wrote in, being gay. I wish I could have heard your voice saying that. Someone's taking my fiance and a ring. Alex in Nashville. Mazel tov. That sounds amazing. Gracie in Boston, who's 22, is taking chewing on big questions without swallowing. Chewing on big questions without swallowing. I am a big chewer. You know what? You know when they say like you're supposed to actually take like, you're supposed to chew your food like 20 times before you swallow it? I never do that. I'm actually not a big chewer physically. Like, actually, the literal chewing, like I am just, it's concerning. It's concerning how much I just want to like shovel food down. But when it comes to ideas, decisions, I'll be chewing on that sucker for years. For years. I like that. All right, let's move on to the next set of questions, which are all also a little bit of a pair. We have, what's something you currently find corny, if anything, and what's something you wish people would stop viewing as corny? And before I even read any of these responses, I was actually, after I put these questions on the form, I was like, oh shit, do I actually want to read the responses? Do I want to open the Pandora's box of things you never thought were corny that now people are calling corny, which I feel like is just what logging onto TikTok.com is. TikTok.com. Logging onto the TikTok app is just learning new things to be ashamed of. Like, people love to shame on that app. There's such a culture of shame on the internet. It's so poisonous and bad. Like, I'm not going to get better out of shame. I'm going to get better out of love. And that's a beautiful little meme. I'm really into sentimental memes right now. They're just so affirming, life affirming. But yeah, so here's what I'm going to say is, if you don't want to, I'm not going to read too many things from what's something you currently find corny. I'm going to read more things from some things that people wish would, oh my God, some things that people wish that other people would stop viewing as corny. I'm not making any sense, you guys. Okay, the first pair I'm going to read, to me, really represents this whole situation and what I was expecting from asking these questions. So to the question of what's something you currently find corny, Gabrielle in California said, in quotation marks, "I really like you," like the phrase "I really like you." And she said, it's in parentheses, pre-love, but don't want to sound like a 12-year-old. Like, it's corny to say, "Oh, I really like you." You know, it's like, because it's so juvenile in a way. And then on the next question, where she answered, "What's something you wish people would stop viewing as corny?" she wrote in, "I really like you." So it's like, that is what I want to recognize, is like, whenever I find something corny, I want to stop finding it corny. Like, I want to release myself from the shackles of that. Like, I know that I inherited the cringe, corny culture of improv in my head, and I want to eradicate that. So I thought it was just I was glad that somebody wrote in that way. It's like, the thing that you find corny, you wish, when you say what you wish people would stop finding corny, you include yourself in that. It's like, I wish me included would stop finding that corny. Elizabeth in New York said, "What's something you find corny?" Posting about your SO on social media. And I just had to laugh. Because sometimes people, you can feel that someone's doing it to prove something, you know, where you're like, if your boyfriend were actually that great, would you have to, like, because there's a difference between expressing your love because you're just so excited about it and you're just like, you're in puppy love and you're just like so jubilated about it, and then there gets to a point where you can, and I have like a really fine intuition with this, where you can just tell when someone's posting something because they want you to believe that they're in a good relationship and they have something good going, and you're like, don't try to convince me, babe, and don't try to convince yourself either. Okay. Eric in Turkey said, "I'm sorry, but weird random hobbies people get into so late in their lives, like beginner's ballet for adults. I, of course, don't say anything, and I try not to be judgmental. I'm happy if people around me are happy, but I actually can't take it seriously." I was waiting for someone to just write in with improv so I could very directly just prove to you that people do view improv as corny. But this is pretty close. Like, I love it. I love it when people just start taking tap dancing classes or like get into, I don't know, calligraphy or something. I love it. I love it because I'm just like, we have denied ourselves of these little crafts for so long. Like, it's time to just maybe indulge in these things you never thought you could do when you're younger. But I understand that it does appear corny, but I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. Okay. Now we're going to hear from Chloe in Vienna, who's 25, who articulates something very important about corniness and cringe, which is context so deeply matters. One person could do the exact same thing as another person, and you would view it corny as one and not for the other. Why is that? Well, I'll tell you, because we have oscillating feelings about people. So Chloe said, "Oh my God, this is the perfect question at the perfect time. I went on a date with a guy the other day whose cheesiness I thought at first was endearing. But now when I look back on the date as a whole, I want to throw up. Mom, can you pick me up? I feel like I have to throw up." I would be in the middle of telling a very interesting story and he'd interrupt me and say, "I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. The way your hair is sitting on your shoulders is so beautiful. It's distracting." Basically, the whole date was filled with compliments delivered at various levels of inappropriateness. So what I find corny is 1, too many compliments on a first date, and 2, badly delivered compliments. I find any sort of unnatural / forced communication insincere and therefore extremely cringy. So this makes so many points. Thank you, Chloe. to the last point, unnatural forced communication, like that goes back to like, trust your impulses. But I fear that maybe he was trusting his impulse, and his impulse was to interrupt her and say that the way that her hair is falling on her shoulders is distracting because it's so beautiful. If the right person told you that, if Paul Mescal told you that, you'd be like, oh my God, thank you, King. I'm so flattered. You know, like if Bad Bunny said that, you'd be like, hell yeah. Omar Apollo said that, hell yeah. But if it's this guy that you're already kind of getting the ick around, no. But I also wonder if these things became corny to you once you realized you weren't really attracted to them that much, or because of all the compliments, it actually made you unattracted. Because that kind of scares me, because I love to freely dole out compliments. If I see a woman on the street and I think her dress is pretty, I'm going to tell her, I really like your dress. You know, like when I'm around my friends, I'm always complimenting them. Because I want to make them feel good and make them feel loved. And I want them to know how much I care about them while we have this very fleeting time on this earth together. Like, I don't want my feelings to go left unsaid. So in a way, I'm like, I want to believe that if the right person had said that same line, like the way that your hair is sitting on your shoulders is so beautiful, it's distracting, like it would have been okay. Or if he had saved that for not the first date. Like, why are you already so infatuated with me and it's been 15 minutes? Like, maybe if he had said that on the 5th or 6th date or during pillow talk, it would have been more natural because the context would have made more sense and the trust is there. But maybe it's just that it was so much up front that it just got overwhelming and it makes you want to pull away. So that one's an interesting thought experiment. Okay. To things that people wish we would stop viewing as corny. Poetry. Who wrote this? Anonymous in Brooklyn. I don't know if people actually see it as corny, but there's a self-consciousness I sometimes feel about the earnestness of sharing poetry, my own or other people's work. Yeah, I just did a Patreon deep cut, like bonus video, sharing poetry I've been writing over the last 2 years that I've been keeping on a private poetry account, probably because in some part I do recognize that like poetry does have a reputation for just being a little corny when you don't read it in the right voice. Like in my voice, when I read my poetry, it's good and it makes sense. But I'm like, if you read it in the wrong voice, it might not make sense. And that's why I'm like, oh, I really just want to turn all my poetry into songs. Because I feel like songs, you can say a corny line, but if you have a good melody around it, it's totally fine. I feel like Tame Impala does that a lot. Like if you look at his lyrics, they're very simple. They're like very simple, and a lot of times it's a very repetitive line just over and over again. But when he puts these really beautiful like elements and like produces it so well, it's like, oh, I buy it. I buy it a lot more than I would buy poetry. So I hear you. This one's from Grace in Durham, North Carolina, who's 26. I did get a few like this. Honestly, I like going to Disney World. And can we just acknowledge that you can have fun there as an adult? There are literal thrill rides and fun snacks that everyone can enjoy, not to mention fun drinks. I hate how I'm labeled a Disney adult for having such a tie to Disney World. My family took a lot of vacations there, so it's nostalgic for me. I hate how you can enjoy something and then suddenly you're categorized as the same level as a fandom. Example, Taylor Swift, Disney, Horse Girls. It feels like you can't be a passive fan of anything anymore. Yeah, because here's what I'll say. Do I think it's fun? Well, actually, last time I went to Disneyland, it was not fun because it was way too overcrowded and they stuffed that park so full trying to make money, it ruined it. Like, I think Disney has always been hyper-capitalistic, but now it's just so much more apparent. It's hard for me to enjoy it. But there was many, many years of my life that I deeply enjoyed it. And I also was like, yeah, why don't you enjoy it? Like, just, it's not that deep. It's not that serious. Like, just stop taking it so seriously and it's fun. Like, you don't have to make it a huge thing. So I hear you. And for the sake of time, we'll move on to the last question, which was asking about your relationship with intuition. Like, you listener, do you have a good relationship with your intuition? Has your trust in it wavered over time? And I got such profound responses. I wish I could read all of these. Flynn, again, in Florida, said, very good relationship with me intuition. I've always found to be more reliable than people. And that's aspirationally where I want to get to. Like, I want to find more reliability in my intuition than the peanut gallery. Like, I love hearing my friends' opinions, but like, I would love it if I could just honor my intuition a little more. Could be good. Julie, who's 27 in Delaware, said, yes and no. I have OCD, so on a day-to-day basis, I actually tend to ignore my intuition because it's usually informed by my obsessions. In more specific situations, risk of true danger, larger life decisions, I do try to tap into it. And there was a few like this with a couple listeners that had OCD, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And because I'm also very neurotic, it's hard for me to tell if it's my anxiety or my intuition that's trying to guide me. For example, Emma, who is 27 in Chicago, said, I have OCD, which is nicknamed the doubt disorder. So my intuition is always telling me something is terribly wrong. But as I've gotten my OCD under control, I do feel more like I can tell the difference between gut instincts that are anxiety driven and gut instincts that are more like a vibe check of a person or situation, which is huge. Steph, who's 23 in Ghana, said, currently my relationship with my intuition is a work in progress. I was raised being told to, and also made to often, override my intuition. So it's been a long process figuring out how to access it at all. More recently, I've been learning to gauge what my gut feelings on certain things are, and I found that in situations that I've ignored or pushed aside my intuition for any reason, to avoid embarrassment, out of obligation, due to inconvenience, my intuition was usually right. These experiences have really encouraged me to trust in and lean into my intuition more in the future. Things usually turn out a lot better for me and those around me when I do. Sophie, who's 25 in New York, said, no, I can't differentiate my intuition from my anxiety 99% of the time. I can't remember the last time I actually trusted it. I feel like for me, when it's those high stakes things I'm talking about, I am using my fear and my anxiety to crush my intuition. Like, I know what my intuition is saying, but my fear and my anxiety is like, no, if you do that, you might face rejection, or they might not like that, or you might actually torpedo the situation. So in my mind, it's like my intuition is not disguised with anxiety. It's like suppressed by anxiety. Sophia, who's 25 in Boston, said, I have a funny relationship with my intuition. It's usually right, but I never seem to follow it. Not sure if it's because I don't trust myself enough or because I enjoy making things hard for myself in the name of character development. Yeah, I think a lot of it gets into trust. Peyton in Seattle, who's 23, said that their relationship with intuition is very complex. I have severe anxiety and intrusive thoughts, and I was in therapy for 10 years up until recently. I had to learn not to trust what I thought was my intuition/gut feeling because it led to serious avoidance that was severely impacting my life. In the past couple years, I've been slowly learning to differentiate anxiety from intuition, but it's still incredibly difficult for me. It's something I know will improve with practice. It just takes time. Yeah, it's very validating to hear that a lot of people have very complicated relationships with their intuition. Many people that were responding were in their 20s or 30s, so there's that. But it's interesting because I feel like my intuition is usually very active. It's like, you should do this. And then I use my anxiety or my distrust of myself to push it down and say, don't do this. Versus this person was saying, your anxiety or your intuition's telling you to avoid it and don't do it. And what you should do is to engage with it. So I love when people live life a different way than me. Anonymous in the UK, who's 26, said that he has a terrible relationship with it. Whatever I think, it's usually best to do the opposite. Yikes. Grace in Brooklyn again said, I don't trust my intuition and I have nothing else to say besides this is going to be discussed in my next therapy session. And I did just come out of therapy today and I discussed this with my therapist, but I didn't make any large breakthroughs. So let me know if you do. And I did get another response from Madeline in Kentucky, who's 26. And she said, after giving some responses, I feel like I need to go to therapy to get more tools on how to approach life. Which, if my podcast can have any consequence or reaction, I would love it if it helped you guys figure out some tools of how to approach life. And then you can come back in, tell us those tools, and then we can all get to work in the workshop with those tools together and we can build a better future. How does that sound? Sounds great to me. Thank you for listening. Leave a review. You can follow me on Instagram at @CatherOut, on Twitter, on TikTok, on YouTube. So many delightful places where I am just pouring out all of my thoughts all the time. So yeah, thank you for sticking around to the end. I appreciate you. I love this time, this little moment to reflect together, and I will see you in a month. Cather out.